Hey friends, welcome to another edition of the Tennis and Bagels podcast. We are officially, I think it's been a while that we've been officially inside of the clay season, but the first tournaments of importance have just happened. In the ATP side, we've had Monte Carlo and Barcelona. Um, those are already done. Our winners, Ruud and Tsitsipas, in back-to-back finals, which is actually kind of really interesting. Um, and then the WTA, the first red clay tournament that they've played in Stuttgart, which is always a very packed draw, very intense, mostly because there are three WTA 1000s as there are in the ATP side. Yeah, we had like some really interesting matches on that side as well. A while ago, we had Charleston, where Danielle Collins backed up her Miami win with another title back to back. So it's like 3 weeks, 2 titles straight. So that's really interesting. So she might become a factor. And since that we are on this, actually, first of all, hey Vansh, how are you doing?
Doing good, yeah. It's always fun to do these podcasts, especially during clay season. Leading up to Roland Garros, there's always a lot of data gathering, and usually a lot of players are like, we're trying to see where are they all at heading into Roland Garros, and like some tournaments give us more information than others, but it's always fun to monitor the progress of all these top players heading into Roland Garros, because some players have more question marks than others. Some, like for instance, Alcaraz, we haven't seen play yet. And so it's just cool for us analysts to get some more insight on, like, who's in form, who's not, how much can we actually read into these results come Roland Garros. And yeah, it's always fun to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And since we added, like, I think that you touched on a very interesting question about like some tournaments give more information than others. And I mentioned Charleston and just now Stuttgart, which are both 500 events. Stuttgart being an indoor event, even though it's on red clay. In Charleston, a while back in the U.S. on Hartrue, the famous green clay. So what do you make of those? Like, how do you think that those tournaments actually give any insight? Are they minor in terms of the progression towards Roland Garros? Because we also obviously had like Collins winning Charleston, which was really huge. And then we also had like the clashes between Swiatek, Raducanu, Kostya, Goff, Sabalenka losing early, and Rybakina beating Swiatek as well, and then going on to win the title. Of course, Sabalenka still, we don't really know to what extent she's still psychologically still a little bit shaken due to recent events in her personal life. But yeah, what do you say of those events?
Yeah, like, I mean, the first half of the WTA clay season is always really interesting because you have wonderful tournaments in Charleston and Stuttgart that are just so well attended. The organization is amazing. Like, the players win a Porsche for winning in Stuttgart, which, funny enough, Rybakina couldn't actually ride because she doesn't have a driver's license, which I found hilarious. But going back to the tennis, also Charleston, I mean, like, it's like one of the most historic venues, like, goes back like over 100 years. So like the players love it, and it's like such great, especially for the players in Miami who just like is pretty close by. So it's an easier kind of seamless type of transition into the clay. It plays nothing like Roland Garros clay because it's green, it's hard true, and it's it's more hard courtish than clay courtish, if you like, with minor adjustments in terms of sliding. But like in tournaments like Stuttgart, Madrid, and even Charleston, they're not quite like Roland Garros type because they're not sea level clay, red clay, European clay that, like, you feel like for the top female players, it's mostly like Rome and Roland Garros that are like very similar. For the men, at least you have Barcelona and Monte Carlo, so that gives at least some more data points for the top players. But like Collins backing up the run in Miami by going and winning in Charleston immediately, like 2 days later, like playing a 3-setter against Ons Jabeur, which is the only set of the tournament that she actually dropped. From then on, she just steamrolled, some really, really good competition, and like was barely losing games against players like Mertens, Kazakina in the final. I mean, it was just quality wins, and I guess it's just the confidence, from winning Miami, and also just that it's her last year, that she feels like she can just leave it all out there, and she's always been a very like capable player, particularly on the return, super aggressive, and she brings that swagger to the court every single time against the top players, and she like fears no one. But to see her like do it from hard to clay, I thought was really impressive, and it's now very interesting because understandably she didn't play Stuttgart, and now she's coming into Madrid and she's still fourth in the race. So like we're kind of seeing her as like, maybe the next tier of like top players, and like with a very good chance to keep it going potentially with Madrid being, fast and it kind of rewarding her hyper aggressive game style. So I'm really looking forward to see what she does, because she's also in the same section of the draw as Sabalenka, and I would love to see a fourth round match between them. Obviously, Sabalenka still has to win 2 matches, Collins as well. So I hope we get that match, because I would just love to see Collins. We saw Collins versus Swiatek already in Australia. That was awesome, and also in Indian Wells. So I want to see Collins play against all the top players before she leaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. Like I really want to see more of Collins, like as much as we can. I was like talking yesterday during a live and talking tennis with Nick, and there was like the questions of whether how much Collins really wants to place her importance of this season at the clay season, and it's just a bit of a it's always a question mark, I guess, like with players that are close to retirement, just because she can either try to maximize her chances of like trying to win back in the either grass season or most probably the hardcourt season in the summer, where it's going to lead up to the U.S. Open. And she plays really well in the U.S., as we know, but she's also played incredibly in Australia, even against the home favorite in Barty back in that final in 2021, I want to say.
22.
And 22, yeah. But yeah, also there's also the fact that she's retiring, so she will never really go back to those tournaments if she misses them this time around. So I would probably lean on saying that she probably, I think Nick said that, or I said, I don't remember exactly, but that she probably will just try to make the most of her opportunities there. Remains to be seen, like how far will she get. But it'll be a very interesting story as well. A very feel-good story. If she can still keep winning big tournaments now on clay, that'll be pretty fascinating. But I guess like you got like the stories of Swiatek and Rybakina, I guess. Like those are probably the current front runners on the clay. What do you think about it? Like I was thinking as well, like how much weight do we want to put into the Stuttgart win that Rybakina had on Swiatek in regards to obviously the French Open?
Yeah, I think for some Stuttgart winners in the past, like you've seen Kvitova, Pliskova, and they've made some semifinals. They've done well at Roland Garros. They've been great players, but with Rybakina, I really feel like she's an all-surface player. I think that her game can transcend on clay as well as it does on hardened grass. I used to think of her more as a hardened grass player, but then I'm looking at her Roland Garros results and they're sneaky really good, because 2021 she beat Serena and she lost 9-7 in the third to Pavlyuchenkova, who almost won the tournament. So, and that was 2021, where she's a completely different player now. And last year she wasn't even given the chance to really continue in the tournament, because unfortunately she got COVID in the third and had to pull out of the third round match. And we might have well have seen her go deep, given also the consistency she had last year. So I think Stuttgart, obviously great venue for her, but honestly, she's just a really great player. Like I'm watching her play Swiatek in this semifinal, and obviously they built a really nice rivalry, and she always gives Iga a lot of trouble, particularly also, she's beaten her like 3 times last year. One of them was a retirement win, of course, in Rome, but still, like she ended up coming back winning, and in this match, I thought she really stepped up and played like some really aggressive tennis, and like off the return, like Swiatek was a little confused on what to do, on how to return, Rybakina's first serve. Like she was standing so far in, and Rybakina managed to save like 13 out of 15 break points. And just the first strike tennis that she plays, I think, really catches Swiatek off guard, even on clay, because of how well like Rybakina is able to extend points and how cleanly she was hitting her backhand as well, like rushing Iga. And it was really, really a problem-solving type match where Iga had to dig super deep even to get the second set. And I always felt like Rybakina was the one in control, because it always kind of depended on how well she served. Like if she served really high for serve percentage, I felt like Iga was having to scrap for her service games, but Rybakina was holding really easily, so it kept like compounding the pressure on Iga, and it just she played amazing in the third set. I actually didn't think Iga did that much wrong, particularly. It was just a matter of her like figuring out how to adjust her return position, how to get more out of her serve. But I think overall, like actually for Iga, a lot was made about like the 10-match win streak in Stuttgart and all of that. I always felt like this is a venue where she might be more susceptible on the clay, because it is more slick and fast, and it is indoors. And I felt like, she had some tests earlier in 2022 and 2023, but she just surpassed them. Like, she lost a set to Pushkova last year. It was kind of a similar type of player in that, like, she's a big server, flat ball striker. And then the year before that, Samsonova, when she was on that, like, 37 match win streak, she almost lost to Samsonova there. So she's managed to keep it alive, but I felt like, she might be more vulnerable here, even though she had that, perfect win streak. So it just makes Madrid and Roland Garros like more interesting. I think if Rybakina is able to beat Iga in Rome, now it's like, whoa, okay, like, because if she's able to beat her on slow clay as well, that makes it really, really interesting going into Roland Garros. But honestly, like, she probably still is one of the 4 favorites. I wouldn't be shocked to see her in the semis or final of RG. I think Iga still wants to avoid Rybakina even on slow clay.
What do you? Because we also had this discussion, and I saw it on Twitter. The big hitting type of thing with Iga Swiatek, and the discussion of like whether it's an everyone problem or is mostly an Iga problem. Somebody also mentioned the low bounce. It could be just like she has trouble with low bounce courts. Case in point would be just the grass. But Iga strikes me as like a one's what do you the term they use, like first strike tennis, like in the sense like after the serve's passed, she tries to take control of the rally as aggressively as she can, and she will go for winners very often, like down the line, just cross court, but especially trying to get the forehand, but even the backhand, like she tries to find winners very often. So what do you think troubles really when she plays? I guess like let's put Rybakina specifically, because she plays well against Sabalenka. She kind of like has her own issues, but Rybakina seems to just get under her skin a little bit more than Sabalenka does for some reason.
Yeah, I think so. I think Rybakina is the toughest opponent for Iga, tougher than Sabalenka mostly. Against Sabalenka, they have these really high octane baseline rallies that are more longer in length, like in Madrid. They're just kind of going toe to toe, and they're personally more enjoyable for me to watch because you have like that contrast, and they're both just. I mean, you have the contest in Rybakina and Swiatek as well, but like in Sabalenka and Iga, it's just like an all-out hitting contest, and they both want to be in charge. But Iga tends to do better in that one because she's also dealing with like a heavier ball, and Rybakina, whereas Sabalenka, whereas Rybakina hits it more straight and low, and it's like just really hard for Iga to like maintain her balance. But honestly, like Rybakina's edge, like in the first serve, I feel like it just makes it really hard for Iga to feel like she has an answer on the return, and it's like every single time there was a break point, it was like unreturned serve, ace, next, and it was just like it's that like unfazed nature of Rybakina that I think also like mentally just creeps into Swiatek in her service games. But their matchup is like there's only 2 or 3 players that can really do this to Iga. Like there's Ostapenko, there's Rybakina. Ostapenko is more of like sort of an anomaly. They're not meeting very often, but every time they do, obviously Penko is just in her own league. Like there's just no one comparable to the way that she plays it. But like Rybakina is able to just take the racket out of her hands and just rush Iga on the first strike like no other, like on the second serve return. The way that Iga is just always on the back foot, and I often find like when they're playing these longer baseline rallies, Rybakina just doesn't fear Iga. Like she's able to just take all of her blows and just redirect down the line, boom, and like get out of trouble with the serve. It just feels like Iga's having to search for answers, and because I feel like when she gets her athleticism into play and she gets into longer rallies, then she can really move Rybakina around, and then that movement difference is clear on clay, right? But like Rybakina just doesn't allow that to really happen, and I think part of the problem is Iga likes to be in control, and she just blitzes through most of her opponents. So she's usually, like you said, the one dominating like from the center of the court, like just spreading the play and seems really comfortable. But when she plays Rybakina, she's trying to sort of fight fire with fire sometimes, and so I feel like she's trying to kind of show that like I'm the superior one and I can kind of play this style, but instead I'd like to see her like sort of brought back on the return of serve, like loop more balls back in, like use her amazing athleticism and speed, because that's what really separates her from most of the other top players, I feel like. So if she can use those maybe to her advantage a little bit more, that would be more interesting. But it's hard for her. I think it's always going to be somewhat of a concern just because Swiatek like still doesn't get that much out of her first serve, like as amazing and generational as everything else is. That's still probably the one part of her game that just kind of it makes it so everything else has to be really good and really perfect. And when you're playing a really top player like Rybakina, it just like shrinks the margin a little bit, you know.
Yeah, if you attack, like for example, if you compare it to Goff, who has also been on a not necessarily on her best form, but still like scraping by on her wins and just like using the most of her incredible mental game. Like Goff is like one of those players that
like she plays so many 3-setters, and I feel like Swiatek never does. So she's in a position of like suddenly having to play 2 hours, 50 minutes, 3 hours, and Rybakina's like I've been doing this for like 2 weeks already, so I feel more at home.
Yeah. And the one thing that Goff I think does that Swiatek just kind of has a reluctance to do is playing a very defensive style of tennis. Like I think Goff can really rip on really both the forehand and the backhand. Even though she can spray some errors sometimes on the forehand, she tends to has had a tendency to be very aggressive with that shot lately. But she can just kind of be comfortable just like being back of the court, just like using her athleticism. Was in full display back in the U.S. Open final last year against Sabalenka. But I think Swiatek just really has this reluctance to like step back a little and just kind of try to play some defense at times.
She likes really, I think she really needs to like cede a little bit of control and take a page out of Coco's book there. You're so right, because she also has an extreme grip just like Coco, but she rips it. And Coco rolls it a bit more and gets more loop and height and resets the rallies. I feel like if Swiatek can use that looping forehand a little bit and reset some of these rallies, and then get into a more like high margin situation where she's able to find a shorter ball, then she's like in much better position. I saw her do that quite even in the second set here. Like she was able to, once she realized like, okay, I can actually loop the ball in and play a little bit more defensively, like that might actually help me, because it's like otherwise you're just kind of playing into Rybakina's strike zone, because she loves the hitting contest. It's a little bit like Alcaraz and Sinner, like in Indian Wells. Like what flipped the match is just, you know, all that variety, like Carlos like just slowing down the pace and giving like these loopier higher balls and breaking Sinner's contact point, because in that matchup also Sinner has the edge on the serve and the return. It's kind of similar to the Swiatek-Rybakina matchup as well. Like Rybakina is the taller player but slightly slower, and like so the more Alcaraz and Swiatek can use those athleticism skill sets that they have that separate themselves, it feels like they might be able to, you know, win some of those matches, because like for Rybakina and Sinner, you know, it's there's just some parallels there. Right? There's a lot of differences as well, but I see some parallels.
Excited to see those tweets with those crazy parallels with birthdays and weird numbers that you come up with sometimes.
Yeah, my mind works in mysterious ways sometimes when I'm thinking tennis and parallels and stats.
Well, that's why you have like what 10,000 followers now.
Yeah, that's actually some of the reasons why I started the Iga and Carlos show, because I started to randomly come up with some of these parallels for Iga and Carlos, and I realized like actually they're similar and very different in some ways, and it would be cool to kind of do a joint pod.
Yeah. I guess like one of the stories of the week, I guess like on the WTA side was obviously Kostyuk. We also had like some Raducanu, if you want to like spill some thoughts on her and like her progression. But Kostyuk has just kind of exploded, I guess. Like this year she's been playing really well. I think that one of the things that I was most surprised with was like how her ranking isn't higher, even though she's now well, I didn't check the rankings this week, but she was 27 as of last week. So she wasn't seeded.
21.
Stuttgart. Yeah, 21. Yeah. So it's definitely something that is going to be better for her, instead of like meeting like all of those like top 10, top 20 players like from the second round on. But yeah, like she's been showing like some good form lately. Had a good run in Australia, if I remember correctly. Now just coming out here, reaching the final. Probably ran out of gas a little against Rybakina, who was also playing like overly well. But yeah, like.
Yeah, you're right. Like she's been really consistent this year, 7th in the race, but also like some of her biggest results: Australian Open quarters, San Diego final, Indian Wells semi, and like she's 7th in the race, but she didn't even play. Like she withdrew from Dubai and withdrew from Miami with injuries. So like that's 7th, having left like 2,000 points on the table. That's pretty impressive, I would say. Like for her, I always felt like she had the capability, because I always feel like she had the complete game. Like when it comes to her technique and her shot making, there isn't really anything that makes me think like, oh, that's a bit tight to her, right? And I always felt like she had that tight game, but it just like in her head, like mental game, I felt like, she was very emotional and kind of she's been through a lot with the Ukraine stuff as well the last couple of years. So that I think maybe slowed down the progress a little bit. It's weird that she's been around forever. She's only 21 years old, like the oldest 21-year-old probably ever in tennis. Because she like first broke through, I remember in 2018, she made like the third round of the Australian Open. She was 15. And so we've been talking about her for a really long time. But now, like, I think it's finally starting to come together. She has a new coach as well. But I keep forgetting her name. It starts with a Z. But yeah, she's been with her like since middle of last year. And like I think, yeah, she's coached some other top players in the past. So it seems to be kind of working, and she seems like unbelievably fit. Like to play 4 matches in a row. Like her strength is very clear. Like she's an elite defender. And she has this like amazing tier 1 athleticism, like along with Goff and Swiatek, and like I definitely put her like in terms of the way like she can cover shots with like slides on clay, and the way she's like some of the balls that she's getting back, like those matches that she played against Junction Wen where she saved like 5 match points, and then like that crazy matches against Goff where like they played each other in the Australian Open, and it was just like a really messy match, but I can understand because of the heat and like the way their games kind of match up with each other. Like it's not the most pretty tennis. There's a lot of errors, but it feels like you're still like kind of on a knife's edge. It was one of those matches where, like someone had to win in the end.
It's like immovable object meets immovable object.
Yeah, it was like who's actually gonna, because it was really tight, very nervy, but it is one of those matches that was enthralling for those reasons rather than like the sustained quality necessarily. But that was also true in Stuttgart, and then like on the 8th match point she finally gets it done, and I'm thinking she's probably gonna run out of gas at some point, but then she beats, she goes like 3 hours against Sigmund, like 3 hours again against
Zhang.
Zhang, and then Goff, and then Vondrousova was actually the easier match for her, which was somewhat of a reprieve, hopefully like for the final to be competitive. But then like Rybakina just played amazing, and like Kostyuk ran out of gas, and that. But honestly, do you think Kostyuk can like potentially, if she keeps this up, because the year is still really long, but do you think like maybe she can break into the top 10 this year if she keeps playing like this?
I mean, if she keeps playing like this, she's already 7th in the race. It's going to take some time. And now getting up in the rankings is probably going to help her. Like, as I said, like not go head on first against the top players like in the earlier rounds. So if she keeps her form, she can definitely beat many other players. And she's probably just going to come in a little even fresher. What would have happened, for example, if she was fresher against Rybakina? Maybe the final would have like taken a different turn. Maybe she would have been able to find more answers. If she only had to play, for example, Goff in the semifinals, or just Vondrousova instead, and just kind of had her only like less, with less top players on the way, I think she could have gone, done better than that. But and I think that's one of the things that, for example, for the 2-week tournaments that are coming about, it's probably going to be a big help for players who, like Kostyuk, played several marathon matches, because it's not like a back-to-back 1-week tournaments. It's like you have to play almost every day. And now she's obviously seeded with the 32 seed in Madrid with like 128 spaces draw, so like 32 seeds, 96 players, and she's gonna have a day off and between every match, so she's gonna be able to recover while getting match practice and just getting some things going on. I think that by Roland Garros, now I'm not saying that she's going to be in top 10 by Roland Garros, but I would say that she could even like break inside of the top 20, top 15, even by then, if she keeps playing that well, and with some draw lenience towards her. But yeah, towards the end of the year, definitely, I could definitely see her qualifying even for the finals.
Yeah, I kind of felt like this was a long time coming for her, but nice to see her put it all together, because I do think the game has always been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on the ATP side, since you've already drew a few comparisons between Alcaraz, Swiatek, and he obviously has
There's one more thing. Kostik's coach, her name is Sandra Saniueska. So she's I knew it started with a Z. I just couldn't remember She used to be coached by her mom for a long time, but now.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Sandra's
just that she breaking away from moms or parents tends to be difficult in professional tennis. Moms and dads, parents in general are tough to break away from. But yeah, it's glad it's working. At least it's gonna show her that she can kind of like go her own way in that regard. And
because just something else, like emotionally, she's always been very, very emotional after every single point that she's lost, and it's kind of affected her mentality because it's like bled into the rest of her game, like her confidence, and I felt like it lingered for too long. But now she gets upset, she accepts it, but she moves on quicker. So I think that's the difference. Like she still gets really frustrated and emotional, but she's able to kind of reset and actually use that as fuel to play better. So that seems to help her.
Yeah, totally agree. I definitely saw a lot of that this week, especially like playing Zhang and golf. Like was extremely crucial. Like we had on the men's side, Barcelona and Monte Carlo happened. I think Monte Carlo and Barcelona had their own like sort of like distinct narratives in that sense. Like we had like Monte Carlo, we had like Djokovic, kind of first time since the loss in his opening round or third round in Indian Wells.
Second match.
Yeah. And then he just kind of came here and came back there in Monte Carlo and lost to Casper Ruud. And then we had also Yannick Sinner who lost to Tsitsipas. And I think that was probably like the final that nobody really expected. Even though Djokovic hasn't really been playing his best tennis, once he got into the groove, everybody probably expected him to like kind of routine or, not have too much trouble against Ruud. I would have expected like a 7-5, 6-4 type of situation in that semi.
Yeah, I thought going into that one that Djokovic would start to slowly elevate because he played a very good first match against Stefanos, but then he really started to struggle physically in his next two matches against Musetti and Diminor Musetti, and of course beating him last year in Monte Carlo. And traditionally, the last 8-9 years, Djokovic hasn't started out super strong in the clay season. Like he sort of built his way into form, and usually he's coming to Monte Carlo having won Australia or won Dubai, usually Australia because he's so dominant there. So at least, everyone kind of knew that, okay, he's not going to be probably playing his best. So, but that was actually his best result at Monte Carlo, like since he won in 2016, funny enough, the semis. So on one hand, I'm like feeling kind of positive about it, but then on the other hand, I'm like, okay, but he still lost to Nardi. He lost to the semis to Sitter. So it hasn't been an ideal year for him to not have a title by now. Mm-hmm. But it was weird because once Djokovic took that second set against Ruud, and Ruud came out like playing much more authoritative and aggressive like he has been all year. So it felt like Ruud's best chance to, make a dent at Djokovic or take a set or maybe even get the win. But then what really surprised me is the first 3 games of the third set where I thought Ruud played phenomenal. Like he just started hitting his backhand on the line, played super aggressive. The backhand on the line is super key for Ruud because he always wants to get his forehand into play. And if he can be more aggressive on that shot, then he's not having to defend on it, and then he's much better off, being the one in control and dictating with the heavy forehand rather than having to defend off the backhand and play so far behind the baseline like he was for most of last year, aside from the French Open. So I think that was a real block for him to get like a big win over a top 3 player. So he finally did that because Djokovic still came back after those brilliant 3 games, and he still had to hold for 5-4 after being up 4-1. Getting it back to 4-all for Djokovic. So, and then like Djokovic kind of played a couple of really bad points to start the game. He missed an easy overhead. And then like
the one that he tried to do a drop shot on the overhead.
Yeah, that one. And then like missed a swing volley after that in the final game when he was serving to stay in the match. So overall, I think Djokovic can be pretty happy that he got 4 matches in. I'm not that surprised that he pulled out of Madrid, just given that he hasn't like wanted to play that event in a long time. He played it in 2022, didn't play it last year, didn't play it in 2021. I think he sort of feels like the conditions are very similar to Roland Garros, and he kind of wants, he'd rather just use that time to get more physically in shape. Well then, Olympics, like surface change again. And obviously we know Olympics and Roland Garros are like the main goals. So I wasn't too surprised. I think if he had lost earlier in Monte Carlo, he would have maybe gone to Madrid. But actually, the 2 years that I mentioned, 2021 and 2023, they skipped Madrid. He won Roland Garros. So maybe there's something to that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does in Rome. But for Casper and Stefanos, really great 2 weeks for them. I'm really pleased that they're back in the mix because they've always been really good clay courters. I mean, they've been Roland Garros finalists, and it feels like there's opportunity for them right now because Sinner, we still haven't seen him best of 5 on clay. He's sort of been unproven in that sense, and we kind of put him in tier 1 because of the amazing 6 months that he's had. So we just kind of assume that those parts will translate better to clay. But Alcaraz is still hurt with a forearm injury. He's supposed to play in Madrid, but not great signs because he hasn't really been able to train and been able to hit forehands. And then of course Rafa, not the same player that he was. And then Djokovic, there's some question marks. So this is a really good opportunity for guys like Ruud and Tsitsipas. And so it's really cool that they played these back-to-back finals and they reversed the results, and they each won one final and they came through the players they were supposed to, because I genuinely think there's opportunity. I would be pretty surprised if they didn't, continue this throughout the whole play season, because I think they're real contenders now. I could put them just behind,
Yeah, I was really impressed by both Ruud and Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas has been having not his not so great time of his career right now. This past couple of months, the Monte Carlo title was almost a bit of a surprise in a sense. Not so much because we know that he's great on clay, and he's already won this tournament twice. That was now his 3rd time winning it, which for me makes it sort of like a baby Guga Curtin, winning Garros 3 times now, winning one.
It's crazy. Only Rafa has won it more times now than Steph. 11-3, but still 3 is
3 is pretty good.
More than Djokovic, who has 2. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But you're so right. Coming into Monte Carlo, he was 25th in the race. He was having a terrible time. He had lost to Shapovalov in Miami and just was a shell of himself, and had lost to the Hechka. And there were just a lot of results where we weren't really talking about him. He was kind of not a factor anymore. He was outside the top 10. He had that injury at the end of last year. He pulled out of the World Tour finals. And usually he plays well in Australia, but he couldn't really get a chance to do that. The preparation wasn't ideal. So this was a very, very important win for him, because, if he doesn't stamp himself on these slow clay courts, then it's trouble for him, because this is where I really feel like this is where he's at his best, where he's able to protect the backhand a bit better. He has so much more time. His tennis becomes a lot more creative and inventive as well. And he's such a great athlete as well. The forehand, when he moves into the corner on clay, it's scary good. And obviously he has the serve and the net play, and the all-round game is always excellent on the clay. So yeah, he was awesome in Monte Carlo, honestly. Particularly the match against Zverev. When I saw him beat Echeverry 1-0, that's when I was like, oh, okay, he's coming. Because Echeverry is an awesome clay court player. So if you only lose one game against him, you're probably playing really well.
He played really well against Ruud, I believe, in the semifinals at Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He pushed him. It was 6-4. It was a very good match. So, in Echeverry quarters last year, Roland Garros, he's been to a couple of clay court finals. So that was a really quality win. And then against Zverev, he was up 7-5 love, and he almost bageled Zverev in the second set. And then Zverev comes all the way back. It's 5-all. It was a bit nervy at the end, but then Tsitsipas plays a great tiebreak. And then the match that everyone was talking about against Sinner, which, he comes out, he plays an amazing first set. He has this 5-3 head-to-head against Sinner, but we haven't really seen post-puke Sinner, if you like, since Beijing. Since he really, post-US Open became the best player. So we hadn't seen that versus a healthy version of Steph. So I was really curious to see how that would pan out. And then, Steph, played an amazing first set. And then, Sinner was the better player for most of the match after that. And then there was that obviously a little controversial line call at 3-1. Sinner had a break point to go up double break. And I do think if he goes up double break, he probably wins that match for sure. We don't know for sure, but he was in a very good position. And the umpire didn't see it. It was, the serve was 7 centimeters out. Sinner plays the point, and then he points to the mark, and Hawkeye on TV shows that it's out, but it was never called. So a bit of a reprieve there, because then after that Sinner also got hurt, struggled a little bit with cramps, we later found out. And so yeah, that makes me question, we haven't seen Sinner totally pushed on clay yet in a really big match, and how his body reacts physically. So I was still impressed by Tsitsipas that he was able to recover started to come back from a breakdown, and but you could clearly see Sinner was a bit hampered, like when he was moving to his forehand side, and I thought Steph took advantage of that and like managed to come through it. So a little bit of help, but still really well deserved, I thought. Like because then in the final he was terrific, but I didn't think Ruud played well, so that was interesting.
Yeah, I think in both finals, like Barcelona and Monte Carlo, like just kind of the reverse of each other. We had like a pretty solid set, like up until like 5-all and or 6-5 in the Barcelona final, and then after that, like Tsitsipas, I don't think he made the best decisions, like going to the net as often, but he also probably ran a bit out of steam. Like the second set was just like all the way Ruud, and Tsitsipas kind of like faded out a bit. But I was very, as you were saying, like I was very impressed with the Ruud's backhand, and also
It was so good in the final.
It was both of them have been hitting their backhands phenomenally. I think Tsitsipas, for the reasons you mentioned before, like game slows down a little bit, has a bit more time to set up. Maybe it's a little bit of the same for Ruud, but like it's just like the willingness to go for that shot a lot more. And it's just something that was like really lacking. And it was just like so loopy before, and it's just like really not even. It was like a bad neutral shot, if you will. It wasn't.
Yeah, it would just put too much, and he'd kind of drift way behind the baseline. Now he's like actually taking it on the rise a bit more, flattening it out, stepping into it better. So I definitely think he made that adjustment, and I also thought he started attacking Tsitsipas's forehand to open up the backhand a bit better. Like he started hitting the inside in forehand as opposed to the inside out, because Tsitsipas always loves to cheat a little bit to his left, because he's looking for the runaround forehand. He wants to hit forehands in the outside, because that's where he feels like he can do a lot of damage and come forward. And like Ruud was like, okay, I'm going to challenge you to your strength, and then I'm going to make you defend on the weakness. So I thought that was a good adjustment. And he also started taking the returns a lot more earlier. Like in Monte Carlo, he was so far behind the baseline when returning. And so what that did is it let Steph do his serve and volley, especially on second serves. And so Tsitsipas saved 8 out of 8 break points in the Monte Carlo match, which he won 1-4. And Ruud was just too passive. He let Tsitsipas do all the dictating, and Tsitsipas was really good at it. But then in Monte Carlo and Barcelona, as you said, like I think the fatigue caught up to Steph a little bit. His footwork wasn't quite as sharp. I still thought he played like a decent match. It was like average Steph, it wasn't like a bad match from him. But it was just, you could tell like he was trying to finish points a little bit sooner. He was, not maybe as prepared to fight as hard, but which I totally get, because he played 6 matches in Monte Carlo and then like scrapped his way to the final. Like he wasn't playing his best the whole week. He had to save 2 match points against Facundo Diaz Acosta in the quarters, and then he went 3 sets against Lajovic. Whereas Ruud, like he played straight sets, and he played quality opponents. Ruud, like he beat Arnaldi, and you mentioned Echeverry, really quality player in the semis. So I thought Ruud was, for him to not drop a set and win that tournament was pretty big. Also his first 500 title. So now you can get rid of the label as a 250 king, especially when he had all these other ridiculous achievements aside from those titles. So yeah, it was really fitting. Tsitsipas still has that really bizarre stat, 0-11 against, in 500 finals. But I guess for him, it's less significant because he's won 3 Monte Carlos and he's won the year-end finals. So if you have that, then it's not as significant, in my opinion, narratively. But for Ruud, it was a much bigger deal. And I'm really happy that they split the matches. And, it kind of, I feel like they can keep it going. And yeah, I'm really curious. I hope they can keep it going at Roland Garros, because I think one of them can make the semis at least.
Yeah. And they played really well. I think every year they really just kind of play well at the French. They obviously not necessarily like Ruud reaching the final twice. He was the finalist.
And actually, the last 3 finals has featured one of them, right? Because Ruud exactly. Last year and the year before, and Steph 2 sets to Novak Djokovic the year before, 3 years ago now. So, wow, yeah. Yeah, and I still think there's like, if Djokovic, Sinner, and Alcaraz play their best, I still think they beat them, of course. But like after that, yeah, I think that probably put Steph and Ruud in the same category. Probably maybe Tsitsipas a teeny bit higher right now, but that's just because we've seen him pull off some really big wins on clay in the past. But Ruud is very close. Like,
what do you think of Nadal's form right now? I saw a bit of his match against I forget his first round opponent in Barcelona.
Yeah, Flavio Cobolli. To be honest, that one was very weird. Like, because I think Cobolli was overawed by the occasion, and he definitely didn't play it anywhere near his best level. Like, he made 27 unforced errors in the first set, and I don't think Rafa was tested as a result of that. So I didn't really get to see how well Rafa is moving, because I felt like the heaviness of Rafa's forehand was too overwhelming for Kaboli to deal with. So I didn't feel like physically he was tested enough for me to really gauge where he was at. But against Diminor, I was impressed by the first set because I thought Rafa was able to physically hang with him and he made it competitive. He had a break point for 5-3. But then Diminor is just so good defensively. He has so many questions of you, especially this year. Like how much he shrinks the court when he's just everywhere. And like he was also just a lot better at taking his backhand earlier than Kaboli was and like going down the line with it. And he was always pinning Nadal in the backhand corner, then going to the drop shot. And the telltale was that Rafa wasn't moving as well as he normally does. Like physically, I don't think he had the match fitness yet. So like he was playing very cautiously. Like he wasn't going after his serve because he hasn't been practicing that serve because it did abdominal injury. So he was basically very predictable with it, always going slice wide. We're basically just spinning it in and getting the points on it. It was almost like watching 2005 to 2007 Nadal, except this time without the physicality and the movement. Yeah. So it made it doubly hard. So basically Nadal just had to rely on his ball striking and his forehand, which is still there. Like he can still strike the ball amazingly well, but the movement and the serve are the big question marks right now. So yeah, he just badly needs like some matches, like, you know, in Madrid and Rome, if he can get 2 or 3 in each tournament. And hopefully the goal is just be healthy so he can finish on a good note at Roland Garros. Not so much like can he win it, but more just so I hope he can play it. You know?
Yeah.
So I guess the goal of Barcelona was just like don't get injured and get a couple of matches in. So and from that standpoint, I guess you could say it's somewhat of a success because like he can build on this. I feel like if he doesn't hurt himself again.
Yeah. Do you think that those questions are enough, like to just say like there's absolutely no chance that Nadal wins the French Open this year?
Honestly, like because it's Nadal and because he's won it 14 times and because there's this like aura of invincibility that he has, like I can just like not really count him out ever. Like I just feel like if he's healthy enough and he's able to play, you know, somewhat decent, like I think he can play a really good match against a top player and then like be really satisfied, you know? Like if he can just do that, like like I can't really put him in any kind of tier or like assess like what he's gonna do, but just because of his record there, he'll probably just, you know, win a first couple of rounds just on aura alone, depending on the draw, right? So I feel like he can just rely on that because like I also think like 2 years ago, like we weren't giving him that much. We weren't making him as like the main favorite. A lot of people weren't because he had the foot problem, and then he didn't play like Madrid and Rome and like he skipped Barcelona, Monte Carlo, and he was like getting injections after every single match. But there, at least he had the confidence from having won Australia, having won Acapulco, like winning 20 matches in a row. But this time he hasn't played any matches in over a year. So the situation is just so different where you just want him to like retire on the court as opposed to like.
Yeah, and he's going to be unseeded, right? So that's going to make things even more.
And actually, I saw that he's playing the Labour Cup this year as well. So it makes
it's true.
Federer type farewell because Rogers tournament, and maybe he is planning to play after Roland Garros after all. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, there was the rumors that he maybe would have wanted to try to and make it to the Olympics, although he's like a very outside chance of this. But
yeah, because he has to qualify, right? Because
there's I don't know exactly what's the rules of qualifying for the Olympics, but there are rules.
Yeah, so maybe that's on his mind, and also because it's held at Roland Garros literally, so it makes it very tempting to want to keep playing afterwards and try to play them.
Yeah, like maybe he wants to like take a page out of Rogers' book and say like, hey, listen, it wasn't amazing for a while. I'm gonna do it exactly the same at the Labour Cup.
Maybe he can play doubles with
retirement.
Yeah, pull him out of retirement for just one doubles match, and then just like that would be awesome. I kind of want that now. Put it down into existence.
I almost feel like they could just do it like for an exhibition inside of the exhibition. Like I think
he played at one exhibition with Alcaraz in Vegas, but it was kind of the same. Like he couldn't really serve, and the movement wasn't the same. So, but yeah. I mean, honestly, if you had told me like Nadal would still be trying to go for Roland Garros at 38, I'd have probably laughed like 10 years ago because I was one of those people that didn't think he would be able to play much past 30. Yeah, like I just didn't believe it because he played so physically, and I just thought there's no way like his body would hold up, and then he won 8 more majors, so I couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, after his first big injury in 2009, I was like one of those guys that were like, yeah, he's done. There's like you can't just have injuries on both knees and come out of this like the same player. He didn't. He actually came out better. So yeah, it's Nadal for you.
And then like the first round of Madrid, because the draw is already out, he's playing Darwin Blanche. Blanche is born in 2007. Like, so by the time Blanche was born, like Nadal already had 3 Roland Garros. It's wild. Like there's the 21-year age gap between them, and it's like he's like 16 and Rafa's almost 38. It's pretty crazy. And actually, if he wins that, then he'll play Alex de Minaur again. So that'll be a good maybe apples to apples.
Man, de Minaur is really just kind of getting in the way of all these big 4 guys playing.
Yeah, he beat Djokovic at the United Cup.
Yeah, and just of course, like no need to mention his record against Andy Murray.
Yeah. But I also feel like he's improved generally quite a lot as a player. Like he's really upped his ceiling to where, like number 11 feels correct.
Yeah. And I guess like there's a final few notes. I guess just a question. Do you have any favorites for Roland Garros in either the men's or the women's side? I feel like this year is like a little bit tougher to tell. Would still probably put like Swiatek as the big favorite.
Women's side is more clear with Iga like still having an edge over the field, even though like Rybakina is putting herself on there, but Sabalenka is the big question, right? Because Sabalenka since Australia, she's 4-4, but she has this amazing record right now of peaking at the majors and like 6 semifinals in a row, and she almost could have done even better than she did it last year, having won Australia, but then those tight losses against Jabeur and match point against Bohova in the semis. So honestly, like I can't rule her out as well going on a deep run. I just really want to see more matches between Iga, Arena, and Elena and Coco. Like the more matches we get in Madrid and Rome between them, the better. But I would still put Iga as the top favorite. Like she's won 3 of the 4 last years. Then I still think it's her turf.
Yeah. For the men's side, I think I would have said Alcaraz before, but now with the injuries, it's just like a really big question mark. Djokovic, again, same as Djokovic, he probably still wants to kind of go for those Grand Slam records, but it's tough to tell like what kind of form he is in right now. But yeah, and there's obviously Sinner, but same reasons as you mentioned before. He hasn't really done. He hasn't really been tested, especially on the 5 sets on clay, which we only really get to have once a year. So since his breakthrough really came out after the U.S. Open, it's obvious this is going to be the first time that we're going to see him there as the Neo Sinner, if you will, at 22 years old, 23, I guess.
Yeah, like he'll be number 1 seed for Madrid, so that'll be interesting because Djokovic pulled out, and so maybe we'll get. Yeah, we'll see like how he kind of handled it. And Madrid is a little bit different with the altitude and stuff. I guess he also didn't play it last year, so it'll be interesting to follow. And then I hope Alcaraz is able to get it going because, that would be a shame. Like this is not ideal for him. Normally he's playing Barcelona and winning it, and then going into Madrid trying to defend it, 2-time champion. But now actually maybe it'll be good if he's healthy, and he doesn't even necessarily have to win Madrid, but if he can get like say the quarters at least. And then like have a really good Rome, then now we have a really solid top 3, like if they're all playing well. But maybe Tsitsipas and Ruud will keep it going. But even they, like, because they did so well in Monte Carlo, Barcelona, I don't put that much stock into what they do in Madrid, just because it's so quickly afterwards, and they're gonna have to adjust back to sea level anyway. Yeah. So, but there's gonna be a lot of opportunity for some players now, and Madrid is always like pretty wild. Like last year, we had Struff getting to the final. Struff, by the way, getting his first ATP title at almost 34 years old. Great story, and he did it in Munich, where it was like it was basically snowing all week. It was that cold. It was really cold, heavy conditions, and he's obviously a guy who could hit through it with his big power. But that was insane because he beat 4 really quality players to do it. He beat Bodin van Nistelrooy on Schulp, and then he beat Felix, and then he beat Rune 6-2, 6-0 in a match that I really didn't get to watch because it was in the middle of the night for me, but I saw he beat him in 45 minutes, which is pretty insane. And then he saved 3 set points against Fritz in the final and won that in straights. So, and this is a guy who's just been searching for the first title, and everyone knew he's way too good to like not have a right title on his resume. So
Yeah,
And he's defending Madrid finals points because he
exactly.
made the finals last year and pushed Alcaraz. Like, it was a good final.
Yeah.
So that was, that's a really cool thing.
Yeah. I think it's almost poetic justice in a sense that like he gets to win a title the week before, where he almost very nearly won it last year. Like, imagine when he first started as a Masters 1000, it would have been pretty epic. But it's great that he got to get some really good wins on his way to his Munich final, including obviously Rune, who was actually his first loss in Munich, I guess, of his career after winning the title 2 or 3 times in the past, I guess. So
yeah, he won it the last couple of years. But yeah, that's insane. Ruben is another guy that I just don't know what to do with right now because he is so hard to read right now. Like, in terms of what version of him we get per set, per match, I have no idea. I don't think he does either. That's what makes it really exciting. He's kind of still like really figuring out what his identity is as a player, because I know he can kind of do it all, but he's also just very streaky right now. So he had a really good clay season last year, but this year I don't think I can put him in the same tier, right? Like, so what I've seen so far, I can't really put him in the same tier as Tsitsipas and Ruud.
yeah.
So
It's
maybe that's still brilliant piece, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I guess the real final note of the episode is that another player has closed the curtains on their career. Garbiñe Muguruza, former world number 1, and Wimbledon and Roland Garros champion, a WTA finals champion as well. 10 times titleist in the WTA tour. It's called their career. It just announced retirement, I think, 2 days ago. Which I missed on Twitter somehow. I just I think I logged in like way too quick, and I just saw a couple of tweets and I was happy with it. Just didn't see it. Mostly I get my news from Twitter anyway. So but yeah, it's just hope all the best for her. Obviously, like, she has had a great career. It's one of those players that some people would have said probably kind of left something to be desired. I would say she wasn't the most consistent throughout her entire career. But honestly, like, when you close this chapter in your life and you look back, you just see that like the things that she's done, dream career for every player. I'd say, like, there's very few players who can say that they achieved more than her in their lives. So, men and women.
Yeah, she's obviously really young, like she's only 30. But the fact that she beat Venus in the Wimbledon final and beat Serena in the Roland Garros final, like, that already is pretty amazing. There's no other player who's beaten both Williams sisters in major finals to do it. And also Australian Open finalist, like you said, World Tour finals. She's been number 1 for 4 weeks as well. So, and then also 3 1000s. So, like, and actually, like, she's won 10 titles, but 8 of them have been on hard courts, and then Roland Garros and Wimbledon. So pretty, and yeah, she's a lot of first round losses, pretty streaky. But honestly, like, when she was on song, like, she was excellent to watch. Like, the way she was very explosive around the court. I remember like some of her peak performances, like just super flat, powerful ground strokes, like just dictating rallies. And like, I remember 2021, she was pretty consistent, like the whole year, finished in the top 3. Just some really memorable moments against great players. But like, seems like she was enjoying her life outside of tennis a lot, like after 2021, and didn't like have the results in 2022. And then it didn't come as a surprise to me. Because like, when she announced that she's holding a press conference, I'm like, she's probably going to retire, because it seems like that. Like, I didn't think there was any intention of her wanting to come back based on social media. But that's good for her that she's really happy in her life and content with her awesome career. She's a Hall of Fame lock for sure in my eyes. So I think she's definitely gonna be missed, but she's had an amazing career. And Spanish tennis. She also had that relationship with Conchita Martinez when she won the title in 2017. I remember that was a big one, because Martinez had been to a Wimbledon final before, and she really played those big matches very well, kind of like a Stan Wawrinka on the men's side, really.
Yeah, exactly.
With those meters, right? So
it's a really good comparison, I'd say. If she had gone on to win the Australian Open, then you would have been the near exact comparison. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, she
just
made Wimbledon final, and I also remember she made Wimbledon final in 15 as well. So yeah, 5 major finals. Yeah, it's, yeah. When you actually think about it, like it's you can almost also make the case that she wasn't an underachiever just because of all these stats. It's like very few players can say they've done all this. So that's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like I said, Tennis and Bagels wishes Karina Muguruza a great retirement. And
Yeah.
yeah, let's just gonna keep enjoying. Like I think that the more and more we are seeing um how consolidated the new generation of WTA players are right now. The retirement from Serena, obviously the rise of Iga Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina, and Goff, and now like a few other players who are now on their way to retirement, and also like Rybakina, Muguruza. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting, and I guess like the pandemic kind of made of a lot of players kind of reconsider like what is their path in life. I guess like a lot of people, and tennis players included, kind of just got a lot of time with themselves to think about what they really want to do. So yeah, there's interesting stuff happening in the 2020s already. So
And actually, one other player that came to my mind just now, Raducanu, because you referenced her briefly in Stuttgart. I was very happy for her run to get to the quarters because she played a really good match against Ika. That was very close. They fought, especially the first set. And she beat two really quality players to get there. And Noshkova the round before that, and she just crushed Kerber. Okay, Kerber is not the same player she used to be, but I still think this is a good run of form now for Emma. Having won a couple of Billie Jean King Cup matches also against Diane Perry and Caroline Garcia. So like this is quite good for her. I think she's played well in Madrid before as well. She played well in Indian Wells. I think if she can stay healthy, we can see her back in the top 50 this year. Fingers crossed, because she has basically nothing to defend for the entirety of last year. She had 3 surgeries last year, and I just hope people are less harsh on her because I still have like huge respect for her, what she did at the U.S. Open, almost 3 years ago now, and she's still only 21. Like, so I think she's definitely shown her quality this week, and I think she can keep it going. Honestly, like Madrid, I think she can keep it going there. Conditions are pretty fast. I was impressed how she was going forehand to forehand with Iga, and she's honestly just a very solid all-around player. Like just the fundamentals are definitely there. So now she's back with a more stable coaching relationship as well, which was a big talking point after the U.S. Open, and mostly just been the coaching changes and the fitness. So if those two things are more stabilized, then she's going to be more or less where she belongs, I think.
yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think that I don't really see many holes in her game. If something can be exploited, is by tactics and not necessarily a straightforward path to beating her. So I really like the way she plays, and I'm really happy that she's been able to keep herself healthy now. And obviously, you mentioned the coaching situation. I am really excited and hoping that things remain stable for her throughout the season, that we can see her playing like a full season of tennis without injuries, without setbacks, without major setbacks, really. Because sometimes there's like little things here and there that require them to pull out of a tournament or two. But like, yeah, it's hopefully she can just overall stay healthy until the end of the season. And yeah, I fully agree with you. I would say even with good draws and like some deep runs, I could even like maybe see a top 30 finish, like if things really align for her.
Yeah,
But yeah,
she definitely played at a top 30 level this week. And it's possible for sure. She just has to stay healthy. I think that's the biggest
for sure. Yeah,
biggest thing.
yeah. All right, so I guess that's all our time that we had for today. Thanks for showing up, Punch. It's just always a pleasure. Let's try and see like if we during the clay season can get us 3 together and just like record a few more. You can always follow Vansh at VanshV2K on Twitter. He's doing some awesome content for his own account and also for Tennis One, the app, which you can find the link for the download on Twitter and on YouTube. If you watch on YouTube, the link is there. If you're just like on the podcast, I'm gonna have some trouble like putting this link up, but if it's there, it means that I've succeeded in that. So, but I'll still put it in there. You can just copy paste it into your browser. But yeah, and you can follow me at Roland and Andre, Tennis and Bagels at Tennis and Bagels. Official, I believe. I never remember was there. I think it's just at Tennis and Bagels. And Owen is at Tennis Nation. Owen, probably hoping we can get him in the next episode as well. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us here today. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. It was fun doing this, and hopefully we can get the gang back together with us, three of us, maybe after Madrid and before the French Open. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens.
Yeah, same here. All right, thanks so much, man. See y'all. Bye.